Okay, this one's going to be a pretty simple one today. And I know I showed the video there. I'm trying to get used to StreamYard and using it. Uh, I've still got a long way to go. This is only like my fourth or fifth video to use to make with using StreamYard. So we'll see how that works out. Uh, Forgive me, I've got a long way to go and a lot to learn. But today, what I wanted to talk about from my USA stories is from being in the military is my experience in basic training and how it was held back. Basic training in the Air Force is supposed to be, or it used to be anyway, when I went through in October of '88, was 6 weeks long. I wound up 7.5 weeks in basic training, so I was held back a week and a half, and that's a pretty good story, and I'll tell you what happened um, before I could graduate. So, here's kind of what the story is. Now, you have to go back and understand my background. When I was in high school, I wasn't, let's say, I wasn't the best kid in school. I was pretty rambunctious. I was pretty defiant. Um, Somebody told me to do something, I was going to do the polar opposite. It did not matter who it was, my parents, teacher, whatever. I was going to just absolutely do the opposite of when I had a real problem with authority. So I got in enough trouble. Wasn't bad, wasn't by a judge or any legal troubles like that, but I got in enough trouble at school and with my parents that they decided to send me to military school. And I went to a school called Lyman Ward Military Academy in Camp Hill, Alabama. And at the time, I was born and raised in Mississippi in a little town called Florence, just south of Jackson. And so I went away to school to Camp Hill, Alabama, to Lyman Ward. It was an all boys school. It was 24/7, except during the summer. You went home on the summer. Um, I actually did really well there. Um, I actually excelled pretty well. Turns out I needed that kind of structure. I was part of the orientary team, which is part of running out through the woods, doing map reading, and it's kind of racing through the jungle, if you want to call it, having to navigate via maps. And I was on the shooting team and competed in competitions at Auburn and different state competitions for shooting. And I was also on the drill team, and so I was extremely good at drilling, which is marching, things like that. You see, spinning guns, swords, doing the whole marching thing. So anyway, and of course I had been to military school, so uniforms, the whole marching thing, it was all second nature to me. When I left, when I graduated high school in '85, I didn't join the military until '88. So I went in October of '88. And when I went in, I remember my very first night there that we weren't colors anymore. When we finally, after a few days, we finally got issued uniforms. And I remember taking my boots the very first night, and I spit shined them. And when I say spit shine, I mean the old school spit shine. I mean, I had, the polish, and took a cotton T-shirt, two fingers, used the polish, lick that polish, lick it, spit shine. It was what we call spit shine the boots. And I remember I glassed the very first night. I glassed the toes in my shoes and the heels in my shoes and boots. And the very next day, uh, in uniform, inspection, when we were in ranks, of course, nobody else, they barely knew how to wear their uniform. Mine was all perfect. I had spit shined, and I remember the TI came up to me and he got down on his knees and he accused me of using polish. You could get this polish, liquid from the PX, and you rub that on there and it just hardened. And he accused me of using it. And he got down there with his fingernail and he dug in there. And as soon as he dug into it, he realized that it wasn't that hard shine. That it was a real military spit shine. and he saw immediately that I could drill like crazy. And so he actually promoted me the first day, and I became flight commander. So and funny because I was one of the shortest ones in the bunch. So I went from the shortest one in the bunch in the back to flight commander in the front, and that lasted not very long. And and the reason that I kind of got that taken away from me wasn't really my fault or wasn't his fault. I don't blame the TI for doing that, for busting me from flight commander, because I had a problem, and my problem was running. When I would go to run, I had what they called shin splints, severely bad. So I literally could not keep up with the run. The rest of the flight would run, do their mile and a half run, and I literally couldn't keep up. I was falling behind the whole pack every day. And of course, flight commander needed to be leading the pack in the front, running with them, not falling behind every time. So it really was not a good thing for me to be flight commander for that particular reason. So I got taken out as flight commander and pretty much made road guard uh, at that, which is the one that stands in the back and goes out and blocks traffic and everything for the flights as they're crossing traffic. So um, now, how did I get busted and spend extra time? Now, when you get to about, I believe it was the fifth week or so of basic training, you got 1 weekend where you could go out on base Liberty. You could go out on Liberty. And that meant you could go on base, and some people could go downtown. Like you could go downtown San Antonio, go down the Riverwalk if you had family in different places. So I remember that, and I was having trouble making that run. I mean, I really was. I was at the doctor. They were giving me Motrin. Don't even get me started. They were giving me 1,000 milligram Motrins, and I was taking 10 a day. So I was taking 10,000 milligrams of Motrin a day. The doctor, when I got to my next base, almost freaked out hard on me because of how much I was taking. So anyway, I I we were told that morning at the assembly that morning that myself and the other person who was having trouble making the run could not go on base lib. And so we were like, okay, well, we were curious, the RTI who told us that actually left after telling us that, didn't stick around. So after we came out of breakfast, one of the other TIs from Sister Flight was there, and we asked the TI said, look, does that mean we can't go downtown? Does that mean, can we at least go to the commissary? And the TI said, oh yeah, absolutely, you can go to the commissary. I said, okay, great. So while everybody else went off with their families and downtown to the Riverwalk and all that, he and I just went over to the commissary and walked around the commissary on base. Well, the next day when RTI got back, he found out and came to us and said, what do you mean? I meant for you to stay in the barracks and pull dorm guard all day. You were not to leave the dorm. And we said, well, we're sorry. You weren't here. We asked for clarification, and boy, he blew up. He didn't care. So we got recycled, sent us back to the previous flight, which quite honestly worked out really great for us, because in your last week of everything, you pretty much, that's when you have all your parades and everything. You've been working with your flight for weeks now, getting ready for the parade show and all this stuff and how you work together as a team. So here we were, stuck into this other flight. And so he and I pretty much, they told us, said, look, we've already got everything worked out. You guys will be a cog in the wheel, so y'all just stay and do dorm guard while we're out doing all these things. So really for the next week and a half, me and my buddy who got recycled, we just kind of sat in the dorm while they were out doing all these other things that had to go out and stand on a parade field for hours and do all that stuff. He and I got to hang out in the dorm and not do anything. So we sat back there for an extra week and a half, just pretty much twiddling our thumbs, which worked out pretty well for us in the end. So that was pretty much it. That was my experience. Instead of spending 6 weeks in basic training, I spent 7.5 weeks in the Air Force basic training. And even though I was knew all the head games, had no problems with any of the drills, could make it through all that, my one problem was I had problems running. The shin splints that I had were severely bad. They were bad enough that once I got out of basic training, I pretty much never ever stepped foot on a track again. My entire career in the Air Force, when people would go out once a year and do their runs, mine got pencil whipped every year. I would never step foot on a track again after that. Y'all have a great night.